Playing Dragon Ball FighterZ is a lot of fun, but getting wins isn't always easy. There's a lot to this game, and sometimes it's hard to keep it all in mind. So with this video, what I'll try to do is break down 5 fundamentals for you guys to keep in mind while playing this game. And if you ever feel like you're struggling, then you can come back to this video and see where you feel like you're lacking the most. These fundamentals will actually help you with more than Dragon Ball FighterZ. They apply to most fighting games, actually. I made this video about 2 years ago, right after the game came out. And it recently popped back in my recommended feed, which means people are watching it again. That's not good, because that video is not on my channel. That's on a channel that I used to work for called TGN Anime. So, with the added knowledge that I've accumulated over these past 2 years of playing the game, as well as the help of 5 professional players who are gonna pop in throughout the video, here are the 5 fundamentals that you need to master Dragon Ball FighterZ. Let's start with the toughest one, neutral.
Neutral is by far one of the most talked about concepts in DBFZ and in fighting games in general. Fortunately, in DBFZ, there are many options in the game that allow players to express themselves and choose how they want to play the game. Do you notice people who tend to move toward you pressing buttons with the intent of hitting you or making you block? Or even those dudes who just run away and try to make you make a mistake? Both of these are examples of different perspectives and approaches to the neutral game in DBFZ.
Simply put, neutral is what happens when neither player has the advantage, and they're trying to get the hit on their opponent or getting them to block. It's how you take your character from here to there without getting hit or punished in the process. Dragon Ball FighterZ makes neutral easy by giving players the super dash button. But the more you play, the better your opponents get, and a simple approach isn't viable anymore. Neutral is a tough fundamental to talk about because it's in constant flow. It's never something linear, there's no right solution for all times because a lot of it depends on your opponent's actions and playstyle. There are, however, a lot of things that you can do and keep an eye on to gain the upper hand in neutral.
Although it can be very confusing, there are some very key principles that are present in the neutral game. The first is movement and spacing. Most DBFZ matches are both players running around each other in this dance to make someone commit to an option that may be punished easily. For example, you may notice your opponent dashing under you every time you decide to jump or every time you air block something. And this kind of makes you want to super dash or commit to a unsafe special move. And then you notice you get punished for whiffing that move or you get your super dash 2H'd. This is because they dashed with the intent of baiting that option out of you. Being able to select the movement option in neutral and doing so safely is key to winning the neutral game. A couple of other important movement tactics like this are super jump floating and dash jumping. Floating is done by performing a super jump motion and holding the direction you would like to float in. Floating is commonly used to run away and gain space during hectic moments mid-game and create time for you to see what your opponent is doing next. You can kind of use this as a buffer time to regain your thoughts. You can use this to run away or even to move towards your opponent and bait out certain options from them as well. Dash jumping is performed by inputting a dash and instantly jumping. This gives you the momentum to move across the screen and to punish certain options your opponent is doing, such as when they throw key blasts from full screen unsafely. You can even use it as an escape option. It's an all-around great movement tool.
Of course, you should also remember that this is a team game. You have 3 characters, and as such, you have assists that can help you out in neutral. Just don't throw them out there for no reason. If you have a beam, the opponent can always jump over it, unless the beam goes upwards, in which case the opponent can just stay on the ground from full screen.
Now, the other thing to remember is to manage your assists correctly. Assists have a pretty good amount of cooldown, so be sure to make the most out of each call and give meaning to each time you use it. Depending on your team/assist choice, you will have different objectives with each assist and each will have different strengths. Some will be used for creating openings in neutral. Others will be used to give you that sweet 50-50 mix-up you practiced so long. So don't call them out of necessity, but call them when you can guarantee they will net you some advantage in the neutral. Overall, in DBFZ, you want to be patient and not blow important resources or rush to selecting an option. Abusing your movement options and assist calls can create many important opportunities for you to win the neutral and generally the game. Patience is always rewarded, and being able to see what your opponent is doing in neutral is always a go-to strategy and key to winning in DBFZ.
Once you win neutral, one of 2 things can happen. 1, your opponent blocks, or 2, your opponent gets hit, in which case it's time for you to take that hit and turn it into a combo. Now, when you start the game for the first time, you'll probably be relying on auto combos a lot. You mash that square button, get some damage, that's cool. But what happens after the auto combo is that you go back to neutral. And you could have gotten so much more out of that hit, and now you're fishing for another one.
Optimization. The difference between you killing a character and you having to deal with that character and sparking can turn the tides of the match. Your time spent in training room, understanding and knowing situational awareness of when you're supposed to use your combos and when you're not to is one of the most important facets of becoming a stronger fighting game player. Here's a scenario. Evo Grand Finals. You, the player, are playing against Sonic Fox, and you have an opportunity to take a character off them. However, you drop it, and Sonic Fox makes a full comeback on your entire team. That extra hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. 4 hours in training room that you may have spent or not spent optimizing that combo means the difference between you winning that game.
Now, you can spend that time in the training room, learning the most optimal combo, figuring out how much damage you can get with the team you picked, searching for videos on Twitter or YouTube, finding new routes for your optimal combo, but this game is not as straightforward as that. There are so many things that you need to keep an eye on that will change how much damage you can get from each situation.
Situational awareness and when to use your combos. If your back is to the corner and your character, like Cell, has a move that will put your opponent in the corner to continue the combo, this is an important way to understand situational awareness, because you gaining that corner may mean the difference between you having to play neutral again and you not. Remember guys, situational awareness and when to use certain combos is also an important facet of becoming a strong player. Damage, flashy, cool, all these things matter so much, but what matters the most is you getting the W.
Also understand that damage isn't everything there is to combos. If you're gonna kill a character, sure, go for that optimal route, get that kill. Save as much meter as you can because you're gonna need it for the next character, but get that kill. However, if you cannot get a kill, if you cannot take down a character with a combo you're doing, it's much better to put yourself in a position where you can open them up again without going back to a scramble or a neutral situation. The number of things that can change your combo routes are insanely high and demand a lot of awareness from the player. It goes from what your position on stage is, the assist that you have available, how much meter do you have, and calculating whether or not it is possible to get the kill that you're trying to get or a knockdown to keep up the pressure.
Corner carry, meter gain, all these things are super important when thinking about whether or not to use a certain combo or whether to use that combo. Combos are the flashiest part of the game. They're kind of like me, the dragon. Understand this though, that flashy combo that everyone wants to learn is very important. So focus on optimizing, getting the most damage, and understanding when and where to use certain combos. Johnny.
Now, if you don't want to get comboed, you're gonna have to learn how to defend.
Defense is the least sexy part of the game. Combos are cool and flashy, mix-ups are fun. Moving quickly in neutral is riveting, but really, when you're caught blocking, it can be pretty lame. All you can do is sit there and take what your opponent dishes out. They are doing all the cool stuff you want to do to you. While it might be lame, defense is one of the most important parts of Dragon Ball FighterZ and can be the determining factor to win a match.
Defending is easier said than done. In concept, it's simple. You hold back to block. If the opponent is on the ground, you crouch block because low attacks are fast, but you can usually react to overheads. So you react by standing up whenever they jump or go for the universal overhead. You change the direction of your block if they try to cross you up. You tech their dragon rushes by mashing a button or pressing the dragon rush button yourself, and finally, jump out of command grabs. That said, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a fast-paced game, and it can be hard to react to all of your opponent's options, so players tend to panic. And when they do, usually they use one of the many defensive options that the game offers. And there is a time and place to use all of these defensive options. Let's go over them all. You can reflect your opponent's attacks if there is a gap. Some characters have a reversal move like a DP, and if you have 3 bars of meter, you can always reversal with a level 3. If there's a bigger gap, you can jump out of their pressure. If there's an even bigger gap, players usually mash vanish. This one is really bad, guys. I advise against it. If there is no gap at all, you can guard cancel for 1 bar of meter. Thing is, all of these reversal options have a big downside. They can be punished if the opponent reacts to them or sees them coming.
Defense is not just about escaping offense, but it's also about keeping a cool head under pressure. One thing you could try to remember is that, for the most part, characters are lacking in mix-up tools without assists. I'm thinking about characters like SSJ Goku or Vegito. These characters don't have command grabs, they both lack moves that put them airborne safely, and they both have slow lows, so doing a high-low mix-up ranges from difficult to impossible. If someone using these characters has used their assist to approach you, or they've already used their assists in offense, it can be quite okay to just sit there until you see an opportunity to escape safely. For the most part, your opponent can only Dragon Rush you, which leaves them open, use the universal overhead, which is slow, or peel off to try to get their assist back before they can try again. Another thing to keep in mind is the type of assist your opponent has. It can be quite hard to learn what all the different characters can do for offense. They're grapplers and high speed types, but their assist will tell you a lot about what type of offense and mix-up they can do. For example, if they're running a high block stun assist like Yamcha A or Kid Buu A, you can can definitely expect some type of ambiguous mix-up when they start their offense, which means that you might want to look at guard canceling as an escape tool, or even go back and review your neutral game to try to make it even more difficult for your opponent to get in. If they have two beams though, they might not have too many options for mix-ups besides using system mechanics like Super Dash and an assist call for a high-low mix-up, using the universal overhead, or using Dragon Rush, which gives you much more leeway to escape. Paying attention to opponent's resources, understanding what your opponent can do, along with understanding how strong the tools the game gives you can be one of the keys to consistently winning matches.
Let's say your opponent just watched this entire guide and really took Lord Knight's words to heart. They're blocking your attacks, and you need to get in. How do you do that? You need to open them up to start your own combo. This is when your pressure begins, with a block string. A block string is basically a combo that you do on an opponent who's blocking. But your goal isn't to make that combo super long or to deal the most damage. In fact, you're not dealing any damage. The goal is to break through their defense, to do something that they're not expecting.
There are two types of block strings. One where you try to mix your opponent to open him up using assist and equipment grabs, and staggers where you try to play on the patience of your opponent. Strings can be true, meaning that your opponent will have no time to do reversal on you, nor reflect. And if you want to have a perfect block string, you have to be able to perform a true block string, then have a left-right or high-low mix while being ready to counter a possible quad cancel.
To practice a true block string with no gaps, go into training mode and set your opponent to blocking first only. If your block string really has no gaps, they will be able to block all of it. If they get hit, then it means that there was a gap in the block string. And if there was a gap, the opponent can throw one of the defensive options we just talked about. Making your block string gapless is important, but it's also important, like Noka said, to have a couple of options on your block string. Because if you only have the one, you become predictable, easy to block. So having a left, right, or a high-low option in your mix-up is essential when practicing these block strings. And of course, if you leave no gaps, the player can still guard cancel.
To beat guard cancel, usually you would try to use moves that you can cancel by other normals instead of specials. If you see someone doing like 2H or EX like that's Gohan or Gohan, you can always be sure that you can guard cancel into it. If you don't want that to happen, you would try to do things that can be cancelled by normal. For example, just doing even 5L and then assist and then high jump, then you would get almost unreactable mix. And this is doable with long blocks on assist, such as like Kid Buu A or Barcode B, or yeah, simply long blocks on ones. Then again, if you play Kid Buu or characters that are like him mix-wise, you might feel privileged since you wouldn't need as much block stun as everybody else to perform a mix. And the second one would be staggers, where the goal here is to be able to reset your block strings by doing normals that could be cancelled by other normals, putting just enough delay for the opponent to not be able to react if it's a reset or a frame trap.
In a stagger situation, if you delay your inputs long enough, you can reset your block string. You're able to go back to your light attack, essentially starting over and making your opponent block for a longer amount of time. To do this, you actually do need to leave a pretty big gap, so if the opponent likes to mash out of block, you might get caught. In these situations, a frame trap works a lot better. This is where you do your regular block string, but just delay one of your inputs a little bit, leaving a small gap that will catch these types of players. This will also catch players who jump away or mash vanish while blocking. Both of these options can be reflected, and you can also get caught by a reversal DP or a raw level 3, so keep that in mind.
Characters like Vegito in the corner are a form of this because they lack in mix, so they would try to stagger you until the end of time to make you lose patience or focus, and then hit you with something like a Dragon Rush or a 6-stem or whatever comes to with mind. Common grab characters are different because you'd often take a risk in your block string to hit your grab, and especially since really experienced players could react and punish you on it, so you have to be careful about it unless you're playing base Goku or 18, like this shit is unbeatable. But yeah, the main thing is to remember to lab everything and what's the most interesting things for you to do with your own assists, and the way your character can open someone up and everything can come through after that, like curling with 236H, Nappa with the Cyberman, you have Cell with Perfect Attack, and every character has its own specialty.
And the last fundamental we have for you today is resource management. In this game you have 4 main resources that you'll need to manage throughout the fight. You've got your assist cooldown, your meter, your health, and your sparking blast. First, let's talk about your assist cooldowns.
The reason why resource management is so important is, for starters, this being a team-based game, you don't want to just throw out your assists for no reason. If you call them for no reason, you're playing a team-based game solo. That's not good. Try to make sure your assists are going to have a chance to hit your opponent or make them block at the very least.
I can tell you how many matches I've played where the opponent just throws both assists at the start of the match. All I have to do is either jump to avoid the assist or reflect, depending on what assist they're throwing, and then they're waiting full screen for their cooldowns to come back, just throwing projectiles. This is an easy way for me to win the neutral, because I still have both assists and they're playing the team game solo. From there, I can start my own mix or my own combos.
Let's go over spending bar on supers that aren't going to kill. I see a lot of people, especially at the lower level, spend meter on level 1s when they aren't going to kill. And then your opponent gets out of the corner for free, or you end up in a scramble situation, right? The only time you should spend meter like this is when 1, you're gonna kill, or 2, when you're trying to get out one of your characters because they're low on health. That's definitely a good idea, right? You're like at 10-20%, get them out whenever you have the chance. There are exceptions, such as leveling up Gohan or helping Ginyu set up.
And then we have Sparking Blast. You only get one of these per match unless you get the Dragon Balls. Well, that's easier said than done, which means you're gonna need to use that Sparking Blast for the most useful moment. If you catch a character on a happy birthday and you know how to kill them with a Sparking Blast, you just take a character for free. If you know a Touch of Death that requires Sparking Blast and you get the right starter, that can also be a great time to use Sparking Blast. Defensively though, there's a big debate on the community on whether you should use it on your first character or save it for your last character. We'll have Limit Break, and the Sparking Blast will also have a longer duration. And the reason why there's such a big debate is because both of these answers are correct. It all depends on the situation. Heck, sometimes sparking on the second character is the right answer. It's all about thinking what's gonna put you in the best position to win a match. And the right answer is not always the same. Let's say you're playing against Goichi, for instance, and his godlike defense. You know that you want to spark on your first character, because you're not going to open them up unless you have 2 assists. It's just not going to happen. In other situations, let's say I saved my first character by tagging them out, but now my second character is also bleeding. I have 2 low health characters, sparking on one of them is still going to get them killed with a single combo. In these situations, I might save Sparking Blast for my last character. The right situation to use Sparking Blast changes with each match. There are, however, some objectively bad times to use your Spark.
A huge issue I see when it comes to Spark is when players decide to spend Spark on a bad starter. Say something like you land a random super dash, right, on a full health opponent, or you even land, you know, 5L, right, and then you Spark. The reason why this is so bad is because you're not gonna kill if they're at full health, especially, right? So now you sparked, they're not dead, they still have their sparking, their character gets out, right? You no longer have a get out of jail for free card.
And there you have it, folks. 5 fundamentals that you need to master Dragon Ball FighterZ. And honestly, pretty much every other fighting game out there. It's easy, right? Just do these 5 things. Big shoutouts to Super Noon, Nokami, Lord Knight, Noka, and Cloud805 for sharing their knowledge and experience and giving out these amazing tips. I'll leave links to their channels down below. Without offline tournaments right now, a lot of them are taking content creation a bit more seriously, and I think we're just blessed to be able to jump into their Twitch chat or YouTube comment section and ask them for questions or advice, because they're willing to help. And they're honestly the best help you can get if you want to get better at this game. They're the top players. But that's all from us, folks, and as always, thank you very much for watching. My name's Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye.